Before we met Dr. Mark and Yana Lewandowski, we tried 3 private doctors with the goal of resolving my GI issues that have impacted my entire life. What started this journey was the simple fact that most days I could not leave the house due to living in the bathroom in misery. We couldn't plan trips, we couldn't plan local outings like hiking here in Colorado. Thankfully, we discovered PMCC when I was nearly ready to give up trying to fix these issues. Now, Ashley and I expected to resolve my GI issues, but what we did not expect to find out was that we both were in poor condition.
One of the tests that we did was a microbiome test. When we got the results, it surprised us to find out my gut was actually in worse shape than Jeff's was. And we had no idea. I didn't expect this since I felt fine day to day without any obvious issues. Later in our journey, as we explored and dissected our diets, there were foods I thought were fine for me that ended up being the cause of my cough that I've had for 8 years. After experimenting and removing the foods, my cough ended up disappearing within maybe about a week.
If we hadn't accepted this with an open mind, we would never have discovered how many food issues we both had lurking behind the scenes, impacting our day-to-day life. Now, working with PMCC, we successfully changed what we eat, the way we eat, what we accept into our life outside of food, our dedication towards fitness, mental health, skincare, the list goes on. Whenever we needed answers and support from either Mark or Yana, they were right there by our side. Now, having gained the positive experience with PMCC, I no longer live in the bathroom. We can take trips, we can go outside more, and finally enjoy life here in Colorado.
What's called a microbiome. A microbiome is the composition of the gut. What bacteria reside in the gut? What percent of immune system resides in the gut? Ed, don't say it. Yeah, about 70%, right? So this is our skin and gut are the biggest barriers. And what we know is that the more diverse your gut flora is, the more rich your microbiome, the healthier your immune system, and the better you're able to fight off cancer and other autoimmune conditions. So much so that people with metastatic and early stage colorectal cancers, melanomas, are getting fecal implants to actually boost the immune system. And we know that we can treat folks with certain immune therapies to turn the immune system into Superman. And if we actually tickle their gut flora and the immune system into fighting and recognizing the foreign entities, they have drastically different outcomes. What I mean by drastically, they live 2, 3, 4 times longer than average. And the thought is, well, can we bring this earlier? And this is based on population studies, looking at looking at population studies and seeing who has healthier gut floras and what is it predisposing our risk to, and how long does it take to change your gut flora. So population risks of Americans and Africans were done, and who do you think had a richer gut flora? Yeah, Africans, right? And then their diets were reversed, right? So the Americans were fed an African diet and the vice versa. And in 3 weeks, their gut signature changed. Now, we aren't always able to do this, right? Because I see patients and we check their microbiome and we say, okay, you need to be doing more fiber, you need to be doing more whole plants, and they can't. I'm like, well, I'm just going to pop a pill. Ain't going to work, right? So sometimes you need to heal their gut, and so that, it's not leaky and they're able to absorb. But it's a path and a goal, right? You need to heal and enrich your gut, and that will lead to much better health. Food is a huge component, and not food as medicine as far as not supplements, but as far as risk reduction in specific population with specific components. So plant-based whole food diet has been studied in colorectal survivors, in pancreatic cancer patients, in addition to tree nuts. And what's been shown is that if survivors of colorectal cancer have a handful of tree nuts post their diagnosis, they reduce recurrence by about 40%, which is pretty much equivalent, if not better, to chemotherapy. If you have about 30 grams of whole food fiber, then you decrease your risk of colorectal cancer by about 30% and upper GI cancer by about 20%. If you take 30 grams of fiber in the form of Metamucil, what's your risk reduction? 0. So playing God, albeit attractive, doesn't replace God. We have all of these things, just eat them. Eat whole food, please, Eat whole food, eat nuts, eat things that are more stationary as opposed to more moving. Better for you. We've talked about food, we're going to talk about water. What is this? Yeah, it's a water filter. It's a water filter from our house. So last summer, the sprinkler system stopped working. There was no pressure. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. The grass started dying. I'm like, what is going on? And my lovely wife did some research and she said, you know what, Colorado is kind of a dirty place, and we need to install a filter for the main water intake of the house. And I didn't read, mail, I don't read instructions. I put it in and I'm like, okay, good. So it's supposed to be changed every 6 months. So this was 8 months later. Okay. So this is an 8 months old filter. This is a new filter. So there was so much garbage in the main that there was no water pressure. Changed this, started working. I didn't think we lived in the slums of Denver, but apparently we do. So we are what we drink, we are what we eat, we are what we breathe. Please be mindful of that. So this is the last slide, and I just want to give you a visual representation of how this plays out internationally. And this helped me to frame this. Are we really number one in health? Are we really number one in disease? So these are the rates of breast cancer and prostate cancer in the world. We are here. We're pretty much the top of the pyramid as far as the incidence of cancer, both for breast cancer, prostate cancer, but you can easily replace this with colorectal cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, melanoma. Colorado is the second place in the world for melanoma outside of Australia and New Zealand. That's obviously because in the rest of the world, there is no sun, obviously. And incidentally, just saying, New Zealand is the dairy capital of the world. Just a coincidence. So the slide is brought to you by meat and dairy industry. So the rates of breast cancer are 300% higher here than they're in Asia. And they're nearly 1,000% higher here than in Asia. And when you take this population within 1 to 2 generations and you plop them here, they are here. That's obviously because their genes have mutated, right?